Turn up the volume. It's my favorite part of the show. Money, power, politics. Do you remember President Trump's promise over and over to win big on trade?
Today, our manufacturing trade deficit with the world is nearly $800 billion. $800 billion. And going up fast. Unless I become president, you will see a drop like you've never seen before. You will never see before.
Or you will never see the drop if he becomes president, which is where we are. Or how about last summer when he claimed the trade deficit was in fact going down?
For the first time, maybe ever, the trade deficit just fell, think of that, for the quarter, $52 billion. Nobody reports it.
I think nobody would have thought that would be possible so quickly. $52 billion reduction in the trade deficit for the quarter.
Nobody reports it because it's not accurate. Now, despite the figures he continues to reference, the actual Commerce Department is telling a very different story. We just received the data yesterday showing America's trade deficit in goods rose above $891 billion. That is the highest level in the nation's nearly 243-year history. Meanwhile, the trade gap with China hit a record of $419 billion, despite the president's promise of reining in that deficit with his tariffs. Joining me now, a great friend of mine, Ben White, Politico's chief economic correspondent and a CNBC contributor. So walk me through this, Ben. Is this a sign that President Trump's policies are a failure? Or, again, he doesn't understand trade deficits? Because you and I have sat here over and over saying, I think he's confusing a budget deficit and a trade deficit.
Yeah, it's both of those things.
Good.
It's a failure of his policy, the tariffs that he's placed on China, the tariffs that he placed on solar and washing machines, all the rest of it have led to an increased trade deficit because there have been retaliatory tariffs and we haven't been able to sell as much abroad. But he based his entire campaign and his presidency so far on this very dubious premise that the big trade deficit was a massive economic problem, which it generally speaking isn't. It just means in good economic times, Americans tend to have a bunch of money and they like to buy stuff from abroad often. We do sell a lot of stuff abroad too, but there have been a number of things, a stronger dollar, a stronger U.S. economy lead to trade deficits. They on their own do not necessarily tell us anything about the health of the U.S. economy. So he said, I'm going to bring the trade deficit down, which was always going to be hard. And then he implemented policies that have actually made the trade deficit worse. So it's a failure both of how he conceives of it and the policies.
We know that this administration loves sort of the line, promises kept. They kind of tick through campaign promises. But I don't understand how they could make that argument here. Peter Navarro, who's a guy who gets generously saying very mixed support. Yep. He wrote an op-ed in the New York Post, and in it he praises the administration for keeping their promises on trade. But amazingly, he makes no mention of the higher trade deficit. So I wonder, who is he writing that for? Or does he write it for the New York Post thinking that's not a paper Larry Kudlow reads? Because there's zero shot Larry Kudlow looks at this and says, right on, brother.
No. Well, Larry Kudlow and Peter Navarro have very different outlooks on trade policy and trade deficits. But the fact of the matter is,
they both need to tell the same story under the president, and they can't possibly in this
possibly.
case.
And, all they can argue, I think, is that wait and see, our trade policies really haven't taken full effect yet. We haven't gotten the new NAFTA in place, and we may not, because Congress might not pass it, and we haven't made this trade deal we're planning to make with China. And to be fair to them, that deal will include some big purchases of U.S. goods by China, which could reduce the bilateral trade deficit with China a little bit. But all that means is that the trade deficit is going to grow elsewhere. So overall, it's not going to reduce the trade deficit at all.
All right, let's talk budget deficit. It is up 77% from a year ago. We know that in part is caused by the tax cuts, but tax cuts, we're waiting for growth out of it.
Sure.
But it's also caused by an increase in spending, and that spending isn't going away. Is there any chance this ship is going to get righted given the current administration? I mean,
No.
we're not lightening up on spending in any way.
No, and we're not reversing these tax cuts in any way. I mean, we're probably not going to do a big spending bill
If
like we did the
anything,
last.
remember, Trump said just before the midterms, we got a middle-class tax cut coming.
Right, which was
I'm
never going to
looking
happen.
for.
No, I mean, this is another thing where he campaigned saying not only would he reduce the budget deficit, that he would erase the national debt in 8 years, which was always a completely ridiculous claim. And what he's done with a giant tax cut is increase deficits to $1 trillion a year. Every serious economist before this tax cut bill passed said it's not going to pay for itself. It's going to increase the debt and the deficit. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. So macroeconomics actually works. And people who do this thing for a living, who said the trade deficit would go up, they were right. Who said the budget deficit would go up based on tax cuts, they were right. Trump was wrong.
All right, you wrote an article in Politico that really stands out to me, specifically about the real estate market, the health of it, and kind of the outlook going forward. We know real estate. This is President Trump's jam.
It is.
It's what made his father a wealthy man. It's what made Trump a wealthy man. Talk about the health of it and how it could impact the 2020 election.
Right. It's not great. I mean, we sort of jump off from the Manhattan high-end real estate market, which is what Trump knows the best. And that's suffered a good deal recently, partly because of the tax cut bill, which, eliminated or reduced the amount you could deduct state and local taxes and capped the mortgage deduction, which
saw the super rich move to Florida.
which hurts New York, which hurts all the blue states. So that market is suffering. But overall, construction spending is down. Investment in building new homes is down. The affordability index for millennials who want to buy homes is off the charts bad. And generally what that means is if you get an economic slowdown, it's going to be worse because housing and ancillary stuff is like 15% of the economy. If housing does poorly, we saw it in 2008. This won't be 2008, but it's not doing great, and it's not going to help Trump's economy.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.